As you can probably see behind me, Discworld is a huge collection of books by Terry Pratchett. There are just over 40 novels in this series, so if you haven't read anything by Terry Pratchett, getting started with Discworld can be a really daunting task. I remember that it was a little bit intimidating for me when I first started reading the adult books in the Terry Pratchett world, and he hadn't even written all of them yet. So it is definitely understandable why somebody would look at his incredibly large library of books and think, how in the world do I begin here? What am I supposed to do? And in this video, I'm going to be giving some suggestions of my own for where I think that people should start. I'll give arguments for why each of these is a good starting place and why I think that you in particular may be interested in starting at this particular book as opposed to another. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. Your first thought when you think about starting at Discworld is going to be, why don't I just start at the very beginning? Duh! And I will tell you why you shouldn't, but I think it's also a perfectly valid starting place. The very first book in the Discworld series is The Color of Magic, which is The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. The cover is my favorite part of this collector's edition because this might be my least favorite of the books. It is the first one that he wrote, and so it is understandable why it wouldn't be quite as good as the ones that followed. He was getting his feet wet with his world. It was him figuring Discworld out and putting things together. Now, it's not a bad book. It has been a long time since I read it, but I can't imagine myself giving it anything less than 3 stars. I would have to reread it to know for sure. But it's not necessarily bad. It's just not nearly as enjoyable as the other books in the series. And if you start with this one, it may not really go as well for you as starting with another book would. So if you want to read in order of publication, then Color of Magic is where you should start. I think that's a perfectly decent starting point if you acknowledge the fact that this one is going to be pretty rough compared to some of the later books. Now again, I'm not hating on Color of Magic. I like it well enough, but I acknowledge the fact that it is not that great in comparison to the other books that he's released in Discworld. Now it still has Terry Pratchett's whimsy and charm in it, but I would argue that it's not quite as present or prevalent as you're going to find it to be in many of the other books that he's published. So Color of Magic, I'd say you should pick this up only if reading in chronological publication order is what's really important to you here. If it's not, then I would recommend starting with any of the other ones that I'm going to list here shortly. The next one I'm going to recommend will, of course, be my own first entry into Discworld, and that is going to be a YA novel that he released called The We Free Men in the Tiffany Aching series, which is up. Ooh, it's pretty high up. That is going to be this one, The We Free Men. I picked this up because I liked Terry Pratchett's works that were not Discworld. I believe I read Johnny and the Dead before I read this one, and We Free Men was fantastic. I absolutely fell in love with this world, and when I found out that he had other things that were written in this same setting of Discworld, I was so elated. I think that I read this one and then Wintersmith, and then I didn't see any others after that that were in the Tiffany Aching series at the time, so I went to his adult books, and I believe the next one that I picked up was Thud. If you are looking for a really easy to read and accessible point for Discworld, this is an excellent book. It is really easy to read. It is a YA novel, and it follows a witch who meets a bunch of tiny people called the Knack McFeegle, right? Knack McFeegle? Tiny people called the Knack McFeegle who speak in drunken Scottish and Gaelic slang. It is fantastic and hilarious and adorable. If I remember right, the stakes are pretty slim in this one. I mean, they're significant to the people that are involved, but it's not like the world is about to end. Again, it has been a long time since I've read Tiffany Aching, so I could be wrong, but overall, I view the Tiffany Aching series very lighthearted and fun. It's written for a younger audience, so if you are somebody who typically reads YA books and you're kind of hesitant to get into the adult books of Terry Pratchett's story, this is a really easy starting point, and I promise you, you're gonna find just as much fun and whimsy and enjoyability in his adult novels as well. The next one, and I don't think this is gonna come as much of a surprise, is Small Gods. I view this as an excellent standalone Discworld novel. It ties into the world itself, but overall, there's not a huge tie-in to a bunch of other stories or anything like that. It also serves as a great introduction into Discworld. It's a lot of fun, but it also has a lot of philosophy and insight and things that are really going to make you think. I've read this, I think, 3 times, maybe 4, and every time that I've read it, I've picked up on something else or something else has stood out to me from the other one. And just because it has a bunch of insight doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be a fun and whimsical ride. All of Terry Pratchett's books, in my opinion, have a lot of fun and whimsy in them, but they also have moments that are going to make you think and ponder because it is a satirical look at our own world. And when you satirize reality, naturally your readers are going to pause and reflect on reality. And Small Gods does a great job of making you think about that. So I really like this book, and I think it stands really well on its own. The other book in the Gods collection is Pyramids. Pyramids did come out before Small Gods, but I don't think that you have to read these in chronological order. Small Gods does a really great job of standing out on its own and of setting the tone for Discworld as well. Strongly recommend Small Gods if you're just looking for one that is a standalone you can read without committing to a whole bunch of other ones. This next recommendation will probably come as no surprise because I've talked about it several times on this channel, and that one is going to be Hogfather. Hogfather. librarian. That one is going to be Hogfather. Hogfather is a book in the Death collection, and Death is my favorite of all of the Discworld characters, and there are a lot. I love Death. And that alone, I think, is a reason why people should want to pick up Discworld, is this concept of death, something that we all fear, is made into something that is very accessible, approachable, and honestly something that a lot of Discworld readers love. I mean, Death is my favorite character, and he is the one who comes for the people who die. But Hogfather, like Small Gods, I think stands really well on its own. It might be a little bit weird jumping into this one without knowing anything about the character of Death. I think that you can really pick up on Death's character pretty easily with this book. Now, Hogfather is a Christmas story, and I think it is best read around the Christmas season, but you can read it in the middle of summer if you really want to. It still stands up on its own no matter what time of year you are reading it. It follows Death as he replaces this world's Santa Claus and goes around and delivers all of the gifts and things like that. There's a lot of really funny moments in here, but there are also some insights. It's just really well done. It is a lot of fun. I've reread this, I think, more than any of the other Terry Pratchett books because it's just a fun one to read around Christmas time. It is really accessible, and you can pick it up and read it anytime, just like Small Gods. It stands really well on its own. But if you do enjoy Hogfather, I would recommend reading the rest of the Death collection afterward, because there are other books that feature Death really heavily and feature Death as a focal character. Reaper Man, which is a book in which Death gets laid off or retires or something like that. Death stops working. Death stops doing his thing. He goes off and he starts working as a farmhand. That's the story of Reaper Man, and it follows Death in this story. It's a lot of fun. It's my favorite Discworld novel at the time of this filming. I'm sure that will change in the future, but Reaper Man is one of my most beloved ones, and Death is my favorite character, so I would strongly recommend reading the rest of the Death collection if you enjoy Hogfather. Now for the treacherous moment in which I put this back up. Okay. Now this next book is a great starting point, but before I get to it, I wanted to let you know that you can like, comment, and subscribe, all of which are free, and all of which really help me out as I try to grow this channel. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time to consider doing that, and taking the time to actually do it. I'll read the next book while I wait. Okay, so the next book that I'm going to recommend that you start at is Guards, Guards. This is the first book in the City Watch collection. It follows Captain Samuel Vimes and his ragtag group of City Watch officers. It is a lot of fun. All of the City Watch books, in my opinion, are a ton of fun, and this is the very first one. Now, it follows a dastardly plot. There are all of these political movings and all of that, but Samuel Vimes is not somebody who likes getting involved in politics, kind of resents any involvement that he really has in politics, and you get this sort of Clint Eastwood-esque vibe off of the guy. Samuel Vimes is an excellent character. He is my second favorite to Death. That may not be true. He may be my third favorite. I really need to reread the collection to make a final decision. But I really love Samuel Vimes. I love the City Watch collection, and this is an excellent starting point, I find. Now this, I would say you should pick up this one as your first book if you want to read the whole City Watch collection, which I believe is the largest collection of books. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that makes it the largest collection. It is tied for the largest collection with the Unseen University collection that begins with Color of Magic, but this is an excellent starting point. I recommend that you just pick up and plan to read the whole City Watch collection if you enjoy Guards, Guards. It's 8 books, so Guards, Guards, excellent starting points. There are a lot of really cool editions of this book too, not just this one. I believe there's a black one with like a purple dragon on it that looks really awesome, but I love this edition of it. It is just fantastic. It is one of the books that inspired me to just get the Discworld Collector's Library because of how beautiful this cover is. So Guards, Guards, lots of fun. I love it, and it is not a huge commitment to read this one, and if you love it, you're gonna love the rest of the books because they just get better from here. And apart from that, my suggestion would be to start with honestly, any of them. You can start with any Terry Pratchett book and really enjoy it. There is a lot to enjoy in each of these books, and while the world is filled with this vibrant cast of characters and a beautiful setting and interesting magic systems and all of that, you will pick up on everything really quickly no matter which book that you start with. And if you start with a random one, it's just going to mean that when you go back and reread it in the future after you've finished all of the other books, you're going to pick up on things that you missed before. I started the adult collection with Thud. I began reading We Free Men, and then I went to the adult collection, and the first one I picked up was Thud. Thud is close to the last of the City Watch books. I picked that one up and I loved it, and I just kept reading random Discworld novels from there. I didn't read them in order at all when I did my first read through of the Discworld collection. I just read the one that I could find, and they are all excellent. I think you can start just about anywhere, but hopefully the suggestions that I've given you in this video have really helped you out with making a decision on where it is that you want to start and what's going to work best for you. If you really like YA books, start with the We Free Men. If you want to read it chronologically, go ahead and start with Color of Magic. If you're somebody who likes mystery and intrigue, I'd recommend the City Watch collection beginning with Guards, Guards. There's all sorts of different starting places here, and where you begin is up to you, but wherever you begin, I'm sure you're going to want to read the next one. Thank you very much for taking the time to check out this video. I really appreciate it. If you would like to see another one from me, you can go ahead and click up here. And until next time, bye. butt hurts.